Serious drug dealers of Reddit, have you ever called CPS on a client? If so, what's the story? Attention! Serious tag notice jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment, parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing an ARMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit if you have any questions or concerns. This was a long time ago, and I've since gotten clean and started my own family. But there was a girl I knew who was homeless with her newborn son. On Easter weekend, I was walking on this trail to go meet with some people to sell them a sack. It started raining and that, of course, made me mad. There's these bridges that cross over the top of the trail and lots of kids gather and smoke or get spun under the bridges. And that's where I found her. She was passed out drunk with some random guy under the bridge while her newborn baby sat strapped in his car seat in the rain. He wasn't under the bridge. He was crying. And he looked dirty. I didn't have any children at this point, but I panicked seeing the little guy. I grabbed him, dropped all the shit I was supposed to be selling, and walked off the trail and up the couple blocks to the police station. I told them what happened and where I'd found him. CPS took him and he ended up getting adopted. Edit. Wow guys, thanks for the awards. Y'all are amazing. I like to believe I was just the first one to come across that scene. I want to think that nobody would leave an infant in the rain clearly being ignored, neglected by his obviously incapacitated mother, caretakers. You did good. That child may never know just how much your panicked decision changed his life, but it did. Good for you for turning your life around too, smiley face. You probably saved a life that day. Likely, more than one if you look at the bigger picture. It's good to know there are still people out there who would choose to do the right thing when looking the other way would have been so much easier. Removed. Former dealer here. It's been many years now, but I sold crack, heroin, pills, cocaine as a teenager. I once had a lady come in the trap house with a newborn. She was literally selling herself and/or her baby for a few rocks. When I saw the newborn in shitty diapers and dirty as fuck, I knew I had to give her a few rocks. I let her smoke and leave. I also called BCW, Bureau of Children's Welfare, on her as soon as she walked out. She lived on my street. I couldn't let her try to sell her baby. I couldn't let her keep it either. I just couldn't call the police. The baby was in a foster home less than a week later. The lady disappeared shortly after. I never saw her again. I hope she never got the baby back. She was a real piece of shit. Some people should never get their children back. Lots of addicts try to sell kids for drugs, it's awful. I know CPS tries to keep families together, but sometimes the kid is just better off without the parent. When I was selling to her, a lady shook her crying baby in front of me. I wigged out, took the baby, dumped approximately $500 worth of cocaine and heroin and called 911 from my car. She didn't put up a fight until the cops came to arrest her. She tried to sue me for kidnapping. Definitely not the best strategy for me. I was 18 and addicted pretty bad, but when the baby saw a doctor under state care, he was covered in bruises, a couple of burns, and had 2 broken ribs already. I'm convinced she would have killed him. He's 10 now and happy and thriving. The whole experience, and legal battle when she tried to have me charged with kidnapping, is how I got sober. I think you and that baby both saved each other. Did the kid end up with relatives or a random foster care couple? Do you still keep in touch? I used to deal way back when I was a hot mess in an extremely abusive relationship. I called CPS on not only one person, but 6. The one that sticks with me most though, not only because of the severity but because I called twice, was this couple who used to pick up from me at a laundromat, and we ended up seeing each other often enough I felt okay to go to the place. I was so fucking floored when I stepped through that door. I kid you not, they had taken up all the carpeting in the house, and had torn down the walls to get at the copper wiring and pipes. They had no electricity or running water. There was nothing in that house except for some sleeping bags in what used to be the living room. And then I noticed a nest of blankets with bright blue eyes peering at me over the pile and realized that there was a toddler and a small child no more than 5. Until this point, I had never seen nor heard them talk about having kids. The poor kids were filthy and obviously malnourished. The house stunk of meth so badly I gagged. I couldn't believe it. I guess the look of shock was super apparent on my face because the dad said they were squatting and introduced me to their kids. I made some small talk and then left. The phone was ringing for CPS before I closed my car door. I gave them the address and let them know the conditions of the home, and they were squatting with 2 small children. I gave the names of the parents as I knew them and the names of the kids. They ended up going to jail for the squatting and the kids went to live with a relative. They ended up contacting me back to sell to them after they were bailed out of jail and I never responded. However, the guy the first was with at the time ended up selling to them and they were living in a field in a tent with the kids. I got into a huge fight with my boyfriend over it and was so disgusted he still sold to them. I ended up calling CPS on him again. From what I heard from other people that knew them, the kids were taken permanently after that, and about a year later the mom ended up going to prison for attempted murder and the dad went to prison for check fraud some weeks after that. Edit. I should have mentioned that I sold weed, shrooms, X and acid. I'd say you did the right thing for turning them in, but it's a shame the state doesn't help them for their addiction but rather jails them for their crimes. Throwing them in jail might get them sober for a while but it won't cure the addiction, which is the root problem. Yes, back when I was younger, maybe 17, I got my first job at Domino's Pizza. One of my managers was a really scummy 24-year-old guy that looked like a troll, had astoundingly bad hygiene and also a shitty attitude, but sold good weed and bought me cigarettes. This was my first experience having older friends able to get me good stuff on demand like that. One day he hooked me up with a friend of his that was selling mushrooms, so I met with that guy and bought an ounce, and then walked to my manager's house to sell him some and also get some weed. So turns out him and his similarly aged sister, who has a 1-year-old baby, both live in makeshift bedsheet bedrooms in the basement of the tiny house. They smoked inside, windows closed. Cats everywhere, bugs everywhere, weird gross sour smells coming from all areas. Everything gross. Their mom was home but she was senile and addicted to painkillers, as well as the sister. So we did the trade downstairs, and when I go back upstairs I go to the kitchen to throw some stuff away and I see the baby in a high chair, eating a pack of cigarettes. He's just sitting there tearing them open and putting in his mouth and spitting it out. I ran downstairs and told the sister and she just started yelling, "Mom! Mom, get the baby," a couple times lazily, then gives up and goes back to just sitting there. It was surreal. I hadn't ever experienced such neglect and disgust from people. I left and waited 2 days to call CPS because I didn't want my manager to know it was me who called. I know the kids got taken away and she went to live with a different family member, or at least that's what I was told. How anyone could have a child to just neglect them like that, it really makes my heart ache. Removed. Twice. Left anonymous tips, which I know are hard to follow up for such a strained child protection agency, but as a pot dealer it was all I felt I could do. I found out later one of the kids was put into foster care, adopted by the foster parents, and recently graduated a trade school. I have no idea about the other kids, siblings. But I hope they made it too. Kids should be protected. Humans only get one childhood. Let's let kids enjoy it, and grow to happy adults. Don't hurt them intentionally or by your own stupidity. *************** That also means washing your hands, people. Edit 1. Thanks for all the kind words, guys. A guy in the comments pointed out something that everyone should know. If you need to report to CPS, you flood them with details. Lots of details. It's the only way they can act. A one-sentence tip won't cut it. Just a PSA: if you're going to leave an anonymous tip, we can find people by address and phone numbers most of the time, but we need some details to match up the correct house and family. A lot of times multiple families are living in one house together, so not all the people are there at once. We can't go out on drug use alone. You have to give details about how it's affecting the kids, dirty home, no food, eating cigarettes, pimping out 4-year-old for money, that kind of shit. Most of the time states have very specific guidelines on what child protection is allowed to assign a social worker for. Details are our best friend. I'm not a dealer, but I called CPS on my sister. She smoked a lot of pot, not a huge deal, but one day when I was picking him up to come to my house, she was on the floor smoking a bowl with him right next to her. She also told my husband there was meth in the house and her boyfriend was on acid. They also fought constantly, and I know it got physical. There was a time he threatened her and said, "If you weren't holding him, I'd beat the shit out of you." She always complained that he never slept, but the first night he was at my house he fell asleep with no issue and did perfectly all week long. For the first 17 weeks of her pregnancy she was high, and told the doctors so it's frustrating that she got past that. She called me one day because they had been by to do a wellness check, so I went to pick the baby up, 8 months old. The house was fucking disgusting. I had never seen anything like it. There were piles of trash bags filled with diapers and rotting food. Counters were covered, the floors when I sat down felt nasty. The baby was in only a diaper, normal for his age, but all of his clothes were dirty. She packed a bag for him to stay the night with me. He had multiple patches of ringworm, one the size of a quarter, and his bag, clothes, and car seat were filled with cockroaches. My husband swears up and down he found bedbugs in the baby's car seat. We threw the car seat away and washed all of his clothes, and then went and bought him a new car seat, bought one for my house, and new one for her. We had the baby for a week and CPS never showed back up, so she asked for him back. We didn't have any signed statement saying she gave us permission to take him, so we were worried if we said no she'd try and get us for kidnapping, so we gave him back. We took her to Walmart to buy soap, her car seat, and meds for the ringworm. The next day I called CPS and filed as a mandated reporter and told them everything I knew. It's been 3 weeks and nothing has come out of it. I talked to my sister a little while ago and asked about the ringworm. She said it's still there and that the doctors say there's nothing they can do, which I know is bullshit. It broke my heart to call, but I had to. It kills me knowing he's in that house and I feel helpless. There's nothing else I can do. It's hard enough. My husband and I have our own 5-month-old baby, but I would take that little boy in a heartbeat because at least I know he'd be in a clean, safe house with people to take care of him. He doesn't deserve that. Edit. I just want to thank everyone for the support in this. It's one of the harder things I've gone through with my husband, and he has been so supportive and understanding. He's all for taking the baby if we get the chance. We are stressed out with life in general, and a new baby, plus trying to do everything we can to make sure my sister's baby is safe. Sometimes I sit back and remind myself how that baby's life is, and that no matter what I can't give up on him. Yes, we have called CPS multiple times, as well as the cops. I have pictures of the ringworm and a message from her saying the doctors can't do anything. I don't have any pictures of her apartment. I go in very rarely, and after the one wellness check that was done she's pretty reluctant to let people around. Even when two cops knocked on her door for the check she refused to let them into the house. I don't know if they saw the baby or not. I don't know how much more I can do if the cops can't even get in. I am trying my hardest, I seriously am. I feel helpless because with everything I'm doing nothing seems to be coming out of it. I call for updated every other day on the case and I keep getting told to call back, and I plan to until someone tells me to go get the baby. Everyone who has seen or heard has made a report. I've offered to help her get away from her boyfriend and even let her and the baby move in with us, but she refuses to leave him. I've asked her to let me keep the baby, but the longest we did was a week, and she demanded we gave him back. She doesn't work, neither does the boyfriend. They live in government housing. The baby doesn't go to daycare, and she doesn't have health insurance as far as I know. I didn't know what else to do. I don't have too much knowledge other than my own experiences, and I have never dealt with something like this before, neither has my husband. It is so hard, and you have no idea how helpful a few strangers' support is to me. So thank you guys so much. Keep it up. Every report builds a story that will help. Offer to take the kid every chance you get if you're willing. And try to help her get away from the boyfriend. The things you describe are not okay. I'm doing the same thing to my brother. I love him, but he has too many anger issues and drug problems. They don't mix. Who knew that he can't raise a kid? Not another one like him. A kid who thinks he's a thug, who steals, does drugs, and doesn't care about life. Your sister may love that baby and you may love your sister. But it's the best thing to do. You're only beating yourself up because that's your sister. Nobody wants to do that to family. But like my dad always used to say, better safe than sorry. Real short and simple. Yes, a friend of my girlfriend introduced us to her neighbors who were like 50 to 60-year-old hippies that looked like a bad acid trip but bought weed regularly for full price. Couple months down the road they start being more friendly with my girlfriend and I, and start talking more when we'd go drop off the shit. The topic began with her telling us how she has custody of her daughter's oldest born because her daughter was sitting time at a women's prison. Backstory on the kid: looks 15 but clearly has the mind capacity of a 6 or 7-year-old, not sure what was wrong with her specifically but you could tell there were issues. Near the end of the conversation about her daughter she brought up the fact that her granddaughter was prescribed Adderall 30XR and whenever they got her prescription they'd dump all the little beads into a bowl to use whenever they couldn't find meth or whatever they needed and instead fill the Adderall with Benadryl to make the kid sleep. Till this day I'll never forget the emotions I felt after getting out of there and sitting in my car. My hands were shaking so bad it was hard to Google information about CPS, much less type information in. I felt goosebumps in every pore of my scalp. As a father of 2 I never knew such evil existed. Obviously in movies and shit but never experienced something firsthand like that. One of my friends used children's medicine to make her daughter sleep whenever she didn't want to deal with her. When the grandma took the baby in there was a few months where she cried a lot. She was going through withdrawals because her mother had been giving her this pain medication for so long. Holy shit, Benadryl is one of the most neurotoxic OTC substances and I know how that can fuck you over with extended use in any amount. I was doing that stuff constantly for a while over the summer. I was a dumbass for this but wanted to escape reality even more so and deliriants are fucked, and I felt horrible. As someone with ADHD as well, it's horrible to hear about her taking her meds and replacing them with fucking Benadryl. Fuck her.